Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into complex topics and emerge with clear, actionable insights.
It's good to be back.
We've been on quite a journey together, haven't we? I mean, across 11 previous deep dives, we've meticulously charted the vast landscape of attachment theory.
We really have. It's been quite comprehensive.
We've traced its origins from John Bowlby's groundbreaking vision of attachment as an evolutionary survival mechanism, right? Driven by that deep, innate need for proximity to a protective caregiver.
And then Mary Ainsworth bringing it to life.
Exactly. With her pivotal, strange situation procedure, illuminating those distinct patterns: secure, avoidant, resistant, and then later disorganized attachment.
And always emphasizing the profound impact of caregiver sensitivity.
Yes, and the inherently dyadic nature of it all, always that beautiful, complex dance between two individuals that attachment truly is.
That's right. Our exploration then led us to understand how these early relational experiences aren't just, fleeting moments, but they act as powerful architects.
Architects of our internal working models.
Precisely. Those deeply ingrained mental blueprints that quietly, yet profoundly, shape our adult relationships, our mental well-being, and even the very nature of our connections with others.
And we looked at the evidence for intergenerational transmission, too.
We did. Delving into that nuanced evidence, acknowledging that intriguing transmission gap, where parental sensitivity, while undeniably important, doesn't quite tell the whole story of how attachment patterns get passed down.
Right, there's still something missing there.
And we saw the fascinating dynamic interplay between nature and nurture, observing how the balance of genetic and environmental influences on attachment dramatically shifts across the lifespan.
From early childhood right into adolescence,
A
yeah.
significant shift.
And crucially, we understood that attachment patterns, while deeply formed, they're not necessarily set in stone. Life events, new relationships, changes in caregiving, these can and do lead to significant shifts.
Offering pathways for change and growth, which is so important.
Absolutely. And most recently, we've been immersing ourselves in Dr. Patricia Crittenden's revolutionary dynamic maturational model, the DMM.
A real paradigm shift.
It feels like it. This model radically reinterprets attachment, viewing it through the critical lens of danger and the diverse self-protective strategies individuals develop across their entire lifespan.
The DMM truly shifts our perspective, highlighting the central role of how we process information, whether it's raw physical sensations, our thoughts, or our emotions. It shows us how the brain constantly transforms this information.
In an ongoing effort to predict danger and ensure safety.
Exactly, an ongoing effort. And a key insight from the DMM is its profound emphasis on cultural context.
Right. Illustrating how behaviors that we might initially label as problematic are often, in fact, ingenious and highly adaptive strategies for survival within very specific, sometimes incredibly challenging environments.
It really changes the way we look at human behavior, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So
Yeah.
we've covered, well, where attachment theory came from, what it looks like in practice, how it functions in our lives, and how it adapts and evolves.
A solid foundation.
Today, we're doing something a little different. We're stepping into the research labs of tomorrow, if you will, exploring the cutting-edge questions that will redefine our understanding of human connection.
Looking forward.
Yes.
Mm.
Our mission for you, the listener, is to unpack the critical unresolved issues and the top priorities for future research in attachment theory. This is where the field needs to go.
To continue advancing our understanding of human connection, identifying those areas ripe for deeper investigation and groundbreaking innovation.
So what are the big questions that remain unanswered?
Yeah.
And what paths must researchers take to truly push the boundaries of this vital field? Let's dive in.
Okay.
When we talk about pushing the boundaries, it often starts with the very tools we use to understand something, right? So what's the big picture challenge when it comes to measuring attachment, and what needs to change for future discoveries?
That's a great place to start. Because, well, one of the most fundamental priorities for future research in attachment theory revolves around our measurement tools themselves.
The instruments we use.
Exactly. Think of it like this. If you're trying to understand a highly intricate machine, you need precision instruments. Our current measures of attachment, while incredibly valuable, still present significant challenges.
Okay.
So the big question researchers are wrestling with is, Can we develop better measures of attachment? Measures that allow for the direct assessment of the intricate relationship between what we can actually observe,
The behaviors.
right, the observable indicators, and the inherent inaccuracies in our measurements, what scientists call measurement error, and then connecting that to the underlying theoretical constructs of attachment itself.
So it's about getting beyond just what we see on the surface, peeling back the layers, maybe, to truly grasp those deeper underlying attachment patterns with greater accuracy.
Exactly. And there's a powerful statistical technique that future research aims to leverage called disattenuation of error.
Disattenuation of error.
Oh.
Okay.
In simple terms, imagine trying to measure something truly subtle and complex, like a person's underlying emotional blueprint, but you're looking through a slightly smudged or foggy window.
You won't get a clear picture.
You'll get an estimate, sure, but it won't be perfectly clear. And the smudges, the error, might make it seem like things are less connected than they really are. Disattenuation of error is essentially like a statistical supercleaner.
Ah, okay. Cleaning the window.
Precisely. It's a method that allows researchers to remove the influence of those smudges or inaccuracies that come from the measurement process itself. By doing this, we can see the true, unclouded strength of relationships between different aspects of attachment and between attachment and other outcomes.
So we might be underestimating connections right now.
It's a real possibility. If our current measures have significant uncorrected error, it might be obscuring stronger connections than we currently perceive. Future research absolutely needs to tackle this head on.
To provide more rigorous and truly precise answers.
Exactly. It's about making sure our instruments are as sharp as possible so we're not missing crucial insights just because of, well, fuzzy data.
That makes a lot of sense. And speaking of measurement, we've often discussed how long-term stability of attachment, say from infancy to adulthood, can appear quite weak in some studies.
Those low correlations.
Yeah, with correlation sometimes as low as 0.12 or 0.14. As we explored previously, I think back in part 5 on stability, a significant part of that challenge often comes down to comparing different measurement instruments.
Right. Apples and oranges.
Like using the strange situation procedure in infancy and then the adult attachment interview, the AAI, in adulthood. So does future research need to bridge that specific measurement gap across the lifespan?
You've hit on something crucial there. A compelling point for future exploration is precisely that. Can researchers develop tools that allow for reliable and consistent measurement over truly extensive periods of time?
So the same kind of lens throughout.
Ideally, yes. The goal is to seamlessly track attachment patterns across the entire lifespan, from early childhood into adulthood, using comparable metrics and methods. This kind of longitudinal consistency isn't just helpful, it's absolutely vital.
Why vital?
Because it helps us understand true developmental trajectories without the major confound of using disparate assessment methods. If we're using apples to measure a child's attachment at one age and then oranges to measure it again when they're adults,
It gets messy.
it becomes incredibly difficult to draw clear, accurate conclusions about how their attachment truly changes or remains stable over time. It's like trying to follow a river's course with different maps that use different scales and symbols. You need a consistent, reliable map from start to finish.
That's a powerful analogy. We've also touched on a really important theoretical and practical debate in attachment theory. The shift from viewing attachment patterns as fixed, distinct categories like secure, avoidant, or resistant.
The traditional boxes.
Exactly. To understanding them more as dimensions, almost like a spectrum of traits where everyone falls somewhere along a continuum. But the source material highlights that this is still a very active area of discussion and research. What's the core of that debate for future investigation?
Indeed, it's a vibrant debate, really at the heart of the field. Questions have definitely emerged about the validity of the standard categorical view of individual differences.
Where do these questions come from?
They largely stem from advanced statistical analyses, specifically taxometric and factor analyses. Think of these as sophisticated statistical super sleuths that examine huge data sets.
Okay.
And they try to determine if individual differences naturally fall into distinct boxes or categories, or if they actually lie along a continuous spectrum, much like a dimmer switch rather than a simple on-off light.
Okay, the dimmer switch analogy helps.
For example, studies by researchers like Fraley and Steeker, drawing on data from the massive NICHD study of early childcare and youth development, which is one of the largest studies of the strange situation ever done.
Huge data set.
Huge. They discovered that variations in attachment security actually appear more compatible with a model where individual differences are distributed continuously along two weakly correlated dimensions.
Two dimensions, what are they?
One of these dimensions represents attachment-related avoidance, and the other represents attachment-related resistance. Although it's worth noting the resistance dimension also combined some disorganization indicators in their analysis.
So it's not about being exclusively in one category or another, but rather a blend, maybe, or a position along continuous scales.
Precisely. These kinds of findings really challenge the traditional conceptualization, where avoidance and resistance are implied to be mutually exclusive and categorically distributed.
Like you can only be one or the other.
Right, and these dimensional findings have even been extended to measures of adult attachment by other researchers like Reisman and Fraley. However, it's important to stress these findings require further exploration and replication.
In other large studies.
Yes, in other large sample studies to confirm their robustness and generalizability across different populations. A particularly critical issue for future research, though, is digging into that overlap.
The overlap between resistance and disorganization you mentioned.
Exactly. Does that observed overlap in this dimensional framework truly indicate a common underlying meaning, suggesting these are perhaps not as distinct as we once thought? Or is it possibly just a limitation in how these two constructs are currently measured?
So the tools might be blurring the lines.
It's a possibility. The current reliance on rating scales, whose individual validity and sensitivity, frankly, have received relatively scant attention, might be obscuring real important distinctions between resistance and disorganization.
So what's needed then?
Further work directly contrasting these differing measurement approaches is vital, looking at whether they predict different outcomes or have different origins. That's an important area for future research.
The crucial question then is, how can we refine our measures to clearly delineate these subtle but highly significant differences?
Yes, ensuring we capture the full complexity of human attachment without inadvertently conflating distinct phenomena just because our current tools aren't sharp enough.
That's a deep dive into measurement. And it leads us perfectly to another persistent challenge we've discussed repeatedly in our deep dives, particularly when looking at the link between early attachment and later socio-emotional adjustment, the issue of causality.
Ah, yes, the correlation versus causation issue. Always tricky.
We've seen incredibly strong correlations. But as we know, correlation isn't causation. So does the field now need to really double down on rigorous experimental designs to establish those causal links more firmly?
You're absolutely right. It's one of the biggest hurdles, maybe the biggest. A crucial limitation of much of the evidence we've covered so far, especially those large meta-analyses summarizing attachments links to outcomes across countless studies, is the relative, well, dearth of truly experimental studies.
Or other strong designs.
Or even robust cross-lagged longitudinal studies. These are the gold standard designs. They're the ones that could definitively test the causal role of attachment in developmental outcomes.
Moving beyond association.
Exactly. Allowing us to move beyond simply observing that two things happen together to understanding if one actually causes the other. Think of it this way. Correlation might tell you that ice cream sales and shark attacks both go up in the summer.
But ice cream doesn't cause shark attacks.
Precisely. We need much more work of this experimental nature. This would involve rigorous designs where maybe attachment patterns are experimentally influenced or their effects tracked over time in a way that allows for much stronger causal inferences.
Moving from what happens to truly understanding why it happens and what drives it.
That's the goal, really pinning down the causal chain.
And building on that point about rigor, we also talked about how the way outcomes were measured could influence the findings. Remember in part 6?
The measurement of outcomes matters too.
For example, in our discussions about attachment security and externalizing problems, we noticed that objective measures like teacher reports or direct observation often showed stronger links compared to relying solely on maternal reports.
That's a very keen observation, and it's a vital one for the future.
So does this imply a future direction in refining how we assess outcomes in general? Not just attachment itself, but what it connects to.
Absolutely. Future research should indeed prioritize the development and widespread use of more objective and multi-informant outcome measures.
Multi-informant meaning?
getting information from multiple sources. Just as you pointed out, we saw stronger correlations for externalizing problems when they were assessed by independent sources like teachers or direct observers.
Not just the parent.
Or for social competence when it wasn't relying solely on reports from close friends, which, might be biased. Moving towards more independent and verifiable metrics for developmental, mental health, and even physical health outcomes.
That strengthens the conclusions.
Significantly, it will strengthen the field's ability to draw robust and unbiased conclusions about the true impact of attachment. This means less reliant on potentially biased self-reports or single-source assessments, and much more on observable behaviors, physiological markers, and evaluations from multiple independent perspectives.
Getting a more 360-degree view, perhaps.
That's a good way to put it, a more objective, comprehensive picture.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Moving from how we measure things to what actually drives them. In previous deep dives, we spent a lot of time on the intergenerational transmission of attachment, how these patterns seem to pass from parent to child.
A core concept in the field.
And we specifically highlighted that elusive transmission gap. Remember that?
I do. The gap between parent AAI and infant strange situation classification.
Right, where parental sensitivity, while clearly important, doesn't fully explain the statistical link between a parent's adult attachment interview classification and their infant's strange situation behavior.
Huh.
So what exactly does future research need to do to bridge this persistent gap and truly understand the mechanisms of transmission?
The mechanism question is indeed one of the most complex and pressing challenges in attachment research. It's fascinating, really. While the evidence for parental sensitivity's role is undeniably strong.
We've seen that in the meta-analyses.
Yes, foundational meta-analyses by Van Ijes and Dorn back in '95, updated by Verhage and colleagues more recently. The link is there. But how this transmission actually works remains surprisingly poorly understood.
Still a black box to some extent.
To a significant extent, yes. This persistent transmission gap strongly suggests that we need to learn much, much more about the specific granular mechanisms that truly drive the development of attachment behavior in a child.
Going beyond just general sensitivity.
Absolutely. It includes identifying the precise inputs the attachment system is most sensitive to, what specific parental behaviors or even subtle nonverbal cues are truly registered by the child's developing attachment system, and the specific learning mechanisms involved.
Like, how does the child learn the pattern?
Exactly. Is it classical conditioning? Is it observational learning? Is it something more complex involving inferences? Pinpointing these exact processes is critical. It's not enough to just say sensitivity matters.
We need the details.
We need to break it down and understand the exact steps by which parental behavior, or lack thereof, influences a child's developing attachment patterns.
And this brings us to another facet of the puzzle, doesn't it?
It does. While many studies have replicated the association between attachment and parental sensitivity, it often remains a surprisingly weak predictor of security, explaining only a small portion of the variance, statistically speaking.
Which seems counterintuitive sometimes.
It does. But this points to a larger truth. There's still so much we need to learn about the broader environmental determinants of attachment. This raises a crucial question, one the field grapples with.
What do you do?
Are attachment effects just due to parenting, or perhaps broader parenting quality? And if so, what does that imply for the importance of attachment per se as a distinct developmental construct? If sensitivity is a relatively weak predictor,
then what other environmental factors are truly at play, shaping a child's attachment patterns, perhaps operating below the surface?
That's the million-dollar question.
That's a really thought-provoking point. If sensitivity isn't the entire story, what else might be contributing to a child's attachment security or insecurity? The source material hints at a few possibilities beyond just insufficient sensitivity.
Right, it's likely multifaceted.
Like measurement issues in our assessments, or even the possibility that researchers are literally targeting the wrong parental behaviors.
Precisely. There are several factors that could account for this weaker-than-expected association between measured sensitivity and security. First, as you said, there could be significant measurement error in our current parenting assessments themselves.
We're just not capturing sensitivity well enough.
Potentially. We might not be truly capturing the full spectrum or nuance of sensitive caregiving effectively. Second, there might be a lack of ecological validity in existing parenting assessment.
Ecological validity,
Yeah.
meaning they don't reflect real life well.
Exactly. What this means is that these assessments might not fully capture real-world interactions in diverse natural contexts. They might be too artificial, too lab-based, or limited to truly reflect the complex dance between parent and child in their everyday lives.
Okay.
And yes, as you mentioned, there's a distinct possibility that researchers are targeting the wrong parental behaviors entirely, overlooking other, perhaps more crucial influences that the child's attachment system is actually responding to.
Things we aren't even looking for yet.
Could be. Furthermore, we absolutely must consider the question of third variables, other factors that might moderate or influence the impact of sensitivity.
Like what?
For instance, a child's unique genetic susceptibility could alter how they respond to certain parental behaviors. What works for one child might not work the same way for another, even with the same parent.
Nature and nurture interacting again.
Always. Or other external stressors, poverty, community violence, marital conflict might change which parental behaviors are most operative or effective in different contexts. This means what works for one child or family might not work in the exact same way for another facing different challenges.
So context is key.
Context is absolutely key.
Yeah.
And a critical barrier to truly advancing our understanding here is still the lack of clarity on the precise learning mechanisms and dynamic processes involved in how these interactions shape attachment. We need to understand the how.
And speaking of genetic susceptibility, in our deep dives on transmission instability, parts 4 and 5, I believe, we explored a fascinating finding: that the balance of genetic and environmental influences on attachment seems to shift quite dramatically across development.
Yes, that developmental shift is very intriguing.
In infancy, shared environmental influences, things like the general family climate or the quality of parenting, appeared dominant, with limited genetic effects noted in early studies.
Right, the early twin studies pointed that way.
But then, as children moved into adolescence, twin studies, like the important one by Fearon and colleagues in 2014, revealed a strong genetic influence.
Quite strong, yes. Around 40% heritability for attachment security insecurity.
And surprisingly, no shared environmental influence found in that adolescent period. How does this dynamic interplay between nature and nurture inform the priorities for future research and attachment?
This dynamic shift is absolutely critical for future research directions. While initial twin studies indeed suggested strong shared environmental influences and limited genetic effects on infant attachment security, later, more sophisticated research, particularly in adolescence and using well-validated instruments, has revealed that robust genetic component.
The 40% people.
Approximately, yes. Future research absolutely needs to continue exploring in much greater detail how these genetic and environmental influences interact, co-develop, and change developmentally. It's not static.
What specifically needs exploring?
Well, for example, existing twin studies have often lacked the statistical power to detect smaller but potentially significant genetic effects on specific subtypes of insecurity.
Like disorganization.
Disorganization being perhaps the most important area where we lack clarity on genetic influence. While some underpowered studies have hinted at novel genes potentially relevant to disorganization, we can't definitively rule out some likely small genetic effects here. We need bigger, more powerful studies.
And what about those specific genes we used to hear about?
Yes. We also know, importantly, that findings relating specific candidate genes like DRD4 or 5-HTTLPR, which were once thought to be key players in attachment-related processes, have tended not to replicate in larger studies.
So they were likely false leads.
They were probably false positives, yes, which highlights the complexity and the need for caution. Therefore, future adequately powered genome-wide association studies, or GAVYs.
Which scan the whole genome.
Exactly. They scan the entire genome for common genetic variants associated with a trait, like attachment patterns. These are still needed to fully and accurately map the true genetic landscape of attachment. This will help us move beyond isolated, unreplicated findings to a much more comprehensive understanding of the genetic architecture involved.
Fascinating. Now, we've traditionally focused a lot on the mother-infant diet, which, of course, is foundational to attachment theory. It's where it all started.
It is the primary attachment relationship.
But the DMM, and indeed broader attachment research now, fully acknowledges the crucial role of multiple caregivers in a child's life. What does the field urgently need to explore regarding these other attachment figures beyond the primary maternal figure?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a significant area of current ambiguity and, frankly, under-research.
Hmm.
It's still unclear whether it's best to conceptualize a single, universal parental caregiving system in humans,
One size fits all.
or if there are truly distinct maternal and paternal caregiving systems, each with their own unique contributions and influences on the child. Bowlby, after all, very deliberately used the broader term attachment figure.
Not just mother.
Right, not exclusively mother, signaling this broader perspective right from the outset. So future research urgently needs to expand its focus and rigorously examine other significant attachment figures in a child's life.
Like fathers.
Fathers, definitely, but also adoptive mothers, grandparents, regular childcare providers, anyone who serves principal attachment functions for children. This raises several important, still open questions.
Such as?
For instance, are the precursors to a secure infant-father attachment similar to or fundamentally different from those that foster secure infant-mother attachment? Are the sensitive behaviors the same?
And does our main tool work for dads?
That's another key question. Does the strange situation procedure, our primary tool for assessing infant attachment, adequately capture the quality of infant-father attachments? There have been some suggestions it might not be as sensitive in that specific context.
Interesting. What else?
What is the unique or combined influence of infant relationships with fathers and other father figures on children's subsequent security and their long-term mental health outcomes? Is there something specific fathers contribute?
And the child's internal view.
Yes. Are there differences in the internal working models children form of mothers versus fathers? Do they represent them differently internally? And how do the parents' own relationship dynamics, the quality of the couple's bond, influence the child's developing sense of a secure base and their overall attachment organization?
So looking beyond just the individual parent-child link to the family system.
Exactly. These are all critical areas for in-depth exploration to get a fuller picture of a child's relational world.
Let's delve into the very fabric of attachment, the brain and body connection. From Bowlby's initial psychobiological account, which emphasized those innate drives and evolutionary underpinnings,
Grounded in biology and ethology from the start.
to the DMM's strong emphasis on how our bodies process somatic information, that's physical sensations and feelings, it's abundantly clear that attachment isn't just a psychological construct floating free.
No, it's deeply embodied.
So what's the future direction for integrating biology and neuroscience more deeply into our understanding of attachment? Where does that research need to go?
This raises a truly profound question, really. Should we ultimately be thinking of attachment as primarily a psychological phenomenon, or maybe at its core a biological one, or perhaps most accurately a seamless integration of both?
A psychobiological phenomenon.
Precisely. And crucially, how can we better integrate cutting-edge biological insights into our already rich psychological understanding of attachment processes? What's particularly promising here, I think, is the potential for a greater, more sophisticated use of animal models.
Animal models. To understand human attachment.
Yes, to significantly improve our understanding of fundamental human attachment processes. Remember, Bowlby's original theory drew heavily on ethology, the study of animal behavior in natural settings.
Right, the goslings and all that.
Exactly. He conceived of attachment behaviors as having arisen through natural selection. This psychobiological foundation remains incredibly relevant and perhaps underutilized.
How do animal models help specifically?
Well, animal models offer unique and powerful opportunities for experimental manipulation. We can study fundamental neurobiological mechanisms in ways that are simply not ethically feasible to explore directly in humans.
Like manipulating early experiences.
Exactly, or examining brain changes directly. Their simpler neurological systems, when studied carefully, can help us isolate and understand specific physiological and neurological processes that underlie core attachment behaviors and our innate responses to separation or threat.
Pinpointing mechanisms.
Yes, pinning down the specific brain structures and neural circuits involved in these fundamental processes in a way that's often impossible with human subjects non-invasively. The insights gained from these animal models can then directly inform and guide more targeted human research.
Providing valuable clues to the complex human system.
Exactly. It's a bridge.
That's a fascinating bridge between species. We've also seen, particularly when discussing the DMM and early adversity, how early caregiving experiences can profoundly impact the regulation of our stress systems.
The calibration of those systems, yes.
Does future research need to really expand our understanding of the specific neural underpinnings, the actual brain mechanisms of attachment? What's going on inside the brain?
Absolutely. It's a paramount goal for the next phase of research. A key aim is to significantly advance our understanding of the precise processes and intricate mechanisms by which early attachment experiences relate to later health outcomes, both mental and physical.
How do we do that?
This definitely includes a continued deeper dive into research using advanced neuroimaging techniques like fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging.
Which shows brain activity.
Right. It shows which parts of the brain are active during certain tasks or experiences, and using other sophisticated neuroscience methods as well. The objective is to identify the specific neural correlates of attachment.
Mapping the brain's attachment network.
In simpler terms, yes. Mapping out which parts of the brain are active, how they communicate, and what chemical messengers are involved when we're experiencing attachment-related emotions, forming bonds, or responding to social cues like separation or reunion. We need to pinpoint the specific brain structures.
The physical parts.
The neural circuits, those intricate communication pathways between them, the neurotransmitter systems, the chemical signals like dopamine or serotonin, and the neuropeptides, signaling molecules like oxytocin or vasopressin, all involved in attachment behaviors and emotional regulation.
Wow, that's detailed.
It has to be. And this also critically extends to understanding the developmental trajectories of these neural responses.
Meaning how they change over time.
Exactly. Tracing how the brain's social circuitry matures and adapts over time in direct response to different caregiving experiences, moving beyond just simple correlations at one point in time to truly understanding the biological how of attachment's impact across development.
The source material specifically highlights that early caregiver experiences profoundly influence the calibration of the HPA axis
Our central stress response system.
and its intricate links to inflammation and immune function.
Mm-hmm.
That connection seems huge. So, is there a clear, focused path forward for research into these crucial physiological impacts of attachment?
Yes, there is a very clear and important path forward here. Further research is critically needed on the interplay between different attachment patterns, our individual stress reactivity, how our bodies physiologically respond to stress, and various crucial physiological systems.
Like the HPA axis you mentioned.
Yes, the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which regulates cortisol, our main stress hormone. But it also encompasses inflammatory processes, the body's immune response, which we now know is linked to chronic stress and how these systems are influenced by our early attachment experiences.
So looking beyond mental health.
Definitely. This research needs to rigorously examine their implications not just for mental health, but for a much wider range of physical health outcomes throughout the lifespan, things like cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disorders, metabolic issues.
Wow.
These initial findings, linking early adversity and attachment insecurity to later inflammation, provide a strong empirical basis for researchers to prospectively examine in detail the relationship between early attachment security and observable biomarkers of inflammation in adulthood.
Like C-reactive protein, maybe.
Exactly. Things like CRP or specific cytokines are securely attached individuals showing lower levels of these inflammatory markers later in life, controlling for other factors. Future research must aim to precisely elucidate the complex relations among attachment, HPA axis functioning, systemic inflammation, and the immune system.
So we can understand the biological pathways.
Precisely. So we can better understand the detailed biological processes that link those foundational early experiences to long-term health and well-being. This truly moves us towards a deeply integrated psychobiological understanding of attachment's profound, long-lasting impact on our whole being.
It really underscores how fundamental these early relationships are. That's a powerful connection between our early experiences and our physical health, not just our mental well-being. Now, let's broaden our lens again and talk about the scope of outcomes that attachment influences. In our previous discussions, part 7, I think, we explored the strong statistical links between attachment insecurity and adult mental health challenges.
Yes, depression, anxiety, personality disorders.
Right, loneliness, borderline personality disorder, among others. But what about distinct clinical disorders of attachment, especially those observed in childhood? Is there a need for clearer distinction or understanding there?
This raises a very important question and one that continues to challenge the field clinically and conceptually. What exactly is the relationship between normative attachment constructs, meaning the typical variations we see in secure, avoidant, resistant, and disorganized patterns?
The patterns most kids show.
Right. What's the link between those patterns and specific, more severe clinical disorders of attachment, such as reactive attachment disorder or RAD, and disinhibited social engagement disorder or DSED?
Which are actual diagnoses in the DSM and ICD.
Exactly. They are recognized diagnostic categories typically associated with severe early neglect or institutional rearing. A clearer, more precise understanding of these relationships is absolutely crucial.
Why is it crucial?
For accurate diagnosis, for designing truly targeted interventions, and importantly, for preventing mislabeling. It involves determining if RD and DSED represent simply the most extreme pathological ends of the insecurity spectrum,
It's really, really insecure.
or if they are qualitatively distinct disorders with different underlying causes, different neurobiology, and different developmental pathways that might require entirely different therapeutic approaches. The lines can be blurry in practice, and future research needs to provide that diagnostic clarity.
Okay, so expanding our view beyond just the negative impacts of insecurity. We've often focused on socio-emotional outcomes, but the outline suggests a need to look even wider. Are there specific positive outcomes that attachment security might promote, which need further, deeper investigation?
Indeed, that's a very important shift in focus for the field, moving beyond just risk and pathology. There's a definite need for continued and more expansive investigation into attachment's role in a much wider range of developmental outcomes, not just addressing challenges.
What kind of positive outcomes?
This explicitly includes positive pro-social behaviors. Things like empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of others, compassion, that feeling of concern for the sufferings or misfortunes of others, and altruism, selfless concern for the well-being of others.
Does security predict being kinder, basically?
Well, while earlier research showed some interest in links between attachment security and pro-social motives, future studies can significantly deepen this understanding. We need to explore the specific mechanisms through which secure attachment might foster these qualities. How does feeling safe allow you to tune into others?
Interesting. What else?
Additionally, investigating attachment's impact on school readiness and broader academic success is an increasingly important area for future research.
How attachment affects learning.
Yes. This moves us beyond purely social-emotional domains to look at how attachment influences a child's foundational ability to engage with learning, to regulate their attention and behavior in a classroom, to interact effectively with peers and teachers in educational settings, and ultimately to succeed in their educational journey and maybe even broader life metrics related to achievement.
That makes perfect sense. Expanding beyond the clinical and immediate socio-emotional. And in our earlier deep dives, particularly on stability, we noted that most attachment research on causes of stability has historically focused almost exclusively on very young children, infants and toddlers mostly.
That's true. The vast majority of the foundational work is in early childhood.
We also observed that the environmental determinants of attachment in older children might not be the same as they are for infants. This suggests a significant gap in our current understanding of attachment in later developmental stages. Is adolescence a key area for future focus?
Precisely. Adolescence is absolutely a critical period demanding much more comprehensive research attention than it has received historically in attachment studies. More work is urgently needed to fully understand attachment patterns and their profound impact during this unique developmental phase.
Why is adolescence so unique for attachment?
Well, adolescence is characterized by significant brain changes, particularly in regions related to social cognition and emotion regulation. There's the burgeoning independence, identity formation, shifts towards peers as primary attachment figures for some functions.
A lot is changing.
A tremendous amount, and it often involves unique challenges such as heightened risk-taking behaviors, shifts in peer relationships becoming more central, and the emergence or peak onset of specific mental health issues like depression or anxiety.
And the genetics connection.
And that dynamic shift we observed earlier, where genetic influence became more prominent in adolescent attachment compared to infancy, truly underscores the profound need for dedicated, targeted research in this age group. We can't just simply extrapolate findings from early childhood.
We need studies in adolescence.
Exactly. This also includes rigorously studying whether the same environmental factors that shape infant attachment, like parental sensitivity, continue to operate in the same way in adolescence, or if new distinct determinants emerge as young people navigate their world with increasing autonomy and different relational contexts.
Right. Now, a cornerstone of the dynamic maturational model, the DMM, which we explored in depth in parts 8, 9, and 10, is its profound emphasis on cultural context.
Hugely important in the DMM.
The idea that adaptation is radically context-dependent, reflecting ingenious solutions to historical and current dangers within a specific environment. How does this DMM insight specifically inform the direction of future cross-cultural research in attachment?
This is an absolutely crucial area for the future of the field, especially if we take the DMM perspective seriously, but also just for a truly global understanding of attachment. Future research must deepen our cross-cultural understanding.
To see how universal processes play out differently.
Exactly. To better comprehend how truly universal attachment processes the need for safety, the drive for proximity manifest and are profoundly shaped by diverse cultural contexts and the specific historical or ongoing dangers inherent to those environments.
Moving beyond just Western samples.
Critically important. This involves a deliberate and conscious effort to move beyond Western-centric assumptions, which, as Dr. Crittenden has powerfully noted, often implicitly assume a safe environment as the baseline for human development.
An assumption she challenges.
An assumption she views as profoundly atypical from a historical and global perspective, where danger in various forms has been and often still is a constant feature of the environment for many.
So what questions should cross-cultural research ask?
We need to actively ask critical questions informed by this perspective. Questions about how infants, within their specific cultural contexts, use probabilistic reasoning weighing likelihoods based on experience to evaluate alternative hypotheses about their world based on their unique cultural experiences.
Like predicting caregiver behavior.
For example, how do they make inferences about the likely behavior of different attachment figures? Is a mother's expected response different from a father's, or an elder's, or a sibling's, within a specific cultural framework where caregiving might be distributed differently?
And how does that shape their strategy?
Exactly. And how does this sophisticated probabilistic reasoning then inform and shape their own specific attachment behaviors and their strategies for self-protection, tailored to succeed within their particular cultural niche, this deeper, culturally nuanced inquiry?
It leads to a richer understanding.
Ultimately, yes. It will lead to a more truly universal yet profoundly context-sensitive understanding of human attachment across the globe, moving beyond simplistic classifications to appreciate the adaptive logic within diverse contexts.
Thinking about all these challenges and nuanced understandings, let's turn to interventions. How can we use this knowledge to help people? In our deep dive on intergenerational transmission, Part 4, we saw how randomized controlled trials, the gold standard of research, demonstrated that sensitivity-focused interventions can indeed increase rates of secure attachment in children.
Yes, those intervention studies were very important. Proof of concept, in a way.
It was a really encouraging finding, suggesting that focusing on parental sensitivity is, in the right ballpark for understanding causal mechanisms. It does make a difference.
It confirms sensitivity is a key lever, yes.
But what about the specific ingredients of these interventions? What exactly is making the difference? Especially if we think about it from a DMM perspective, which emphasizes information processing. How can future research refine our understanding of what truly works in interventions?
That's a vital connection to make, moving from basic research to application. Yes, a key priority moving forward is precisely identifying the specific active ingredients and the underlying mechanisms of change within effective attachment interventions.
What makes the clock tick?
Exactly. This is especially crucial for understanding how interventions, particularly those informed by the DMM perspective, work to foster not just outward behavioral change in the parent or child, but deeper flexibility and integration in individuals' information processing and their self-protective strategies.
So not just teaching parents to act sensitive, but helping them process information differently.
That would be the DMM goal, yes. Helping them become more aware of and flexible with different types of information, cognitive, affective, somatic, rather than relying on rigid defensive patterns. The meta-analysis by Bakermans, Kranenberg, and colleagues back in 2003, for instance, showed that interventions exclusively focused on improving parental sensitivity had larger, more impactful effects on child security than broader interventions.
So focus helps.
It suggests focus helps, yes. It gives us a starting point. But future research needs to rigorously drill down into what specific elements within these sensitivity-focused interventions are truly the most impactful.
Like what elements?
Is it the video feedback component many use? Is it helping parents with reflective functioning, understanding their own and their child's mental states? Is it specific behavioral guidance? And crucially, how do these elements align with the DMM's focus on shifting internal information processing from rigid, narrow strategies to more integrated, flexible ones. That's where the cutting edge lies in intervention research.
This directly links back to our earlier point about establishing causality, doesn't it?
It does, very strongly.
Can these intervention trials serve as even more powerful tools, not just to help families, but to actually prove that attachment is a causal factor in later child adjustment?
What's truly compelling here is the dual role of intervention trials. They can be utilized far more effectively, not merely to improve outcomes for children and families, which is the primary goal, of course.
But also as scientific tools.
Yes, also as robust scientific experiments to leverage and deepen our understanding of the incredibly complex interactive processes involved in attachment development itself. Crucially, very few intervention trials to date have been explicitly designed or statistically powered to rigorously test whether attachment truly mediates the effects of an intervention on broader socio-emotional outcomes.
Mediates. What does that mean here?
It means testing whether the intervention first improves attachment security and then whether that improvement in security is the mechanism that actually leads to or explains the positive changes we might see later in the child's social skills or emotional regulation or behavior problems.
So showing the chain. Intervention, better attachment, better outcomes.
Exactly, demonstrating that chain of events. This is a critical issue for the entire field because intervention trials offer a uniquely powerful means to establish causality. By demonstrating, in a controlled setting, that improving attachment directly leads to other positive developmental changes, we provide robust empirical evidence for the core propositions of attachment theory that attachment causes important developmental outcomes.
Using interventions to test the theory itself.
Precisely, it closes the loop.
Finally, let's talk about the real-world impact, where the rubber meets the road. How does all this cutting-edge research translate into actionable policy and real-world change? Dr. Crittenden's DML often emphasizes the systemic nature of attachment challenges.
Yes, looking beyond the individual or dyad to the systems they're embedded in.
Even discussing what she calls iatrogenic patterns, patterns inadvertently created by the very systems meant to help. She specifically highlighted the externally assembled self, or A8 in her coding, as a stark example.
That's a crucial point, the potential for systems to cause harm. If we connect this to the bigger picture of societal impact, a major overarching priority for the field is bridging what we call the efficacy-effectiveness gap in intervention research.
Efficacy versus effectiveness.
Yeah.
Explain that again.
Sure. Efficacy refers to how well an intervention works in controlled, ideal research settings, like a university lab with trained therapists and selected clients. Effectiveness refers to how well it works out in the messy, diverse, and complex real world.
In community clinics, schools, foster care agencies.
Exactly, with all the real-world constraints and complexities. Bridging this gap means actively addressing the myriad real-world implementation challenges that arise when trying to move powerful interventions from carefully controlled research settings into diverse, often resource-constrained, clinical and community environments.
It's not always a smooth transition.
Rarely is. The field absolutely must focus on translating these invaluable research findings into actionable policies. Policies related to child development, comprehensive family support.
Like what kind of policies?
Think about things like equitable parental leave policies that allow parents time to bond, robust funding for high-quality early childhood education and care, improved foster care systems that prioritize stability and relational continuity, and truly integrated interventions within various systems of care: mental health, education, social services, justice system.
Breaking down silos between systems.
Yes. And as you mentioned, this directly includes addressing the potential for those iatrogenic patterns, harm inadvertently caused by the system itself.
Like the externally assembled self, the A8 pattern.
Right, which Dr. Crittenden asserted quite strongly is created by professionals in 100% of the cases she observed. She described this as often inadvertently caused by fragmented care systems bouncing vulnerable children between multiple caregivers, multiple therapists, multiple agencies.
Each giving different advice or focusing on different things.
Exactly, leading to a compiled, unintegrated identity in the child that lacks genuine, self-generated information and coherence. It's assembled from the outside, not integrated from within. That's a powerful and disturbing observation about system effects.
It really is.
It is indeed. And that exact point underscores the urgency of translating these profound insights into effective policy and practice. Translating findings into policy also involves taking deeply personal yet systemic insights from research on parental factors into account.
Like Crittenden's finding about foster parents.
For instance, yes, Dr. Crittenden's powerful observation that all the foster parents she studied in one sample had unresolved childhood losses, leading her to advocate for rigorously evaluating potential foster parents for unresolved losses, putting them on par with how we might assess biological parents in difficult circumstances where attachment history is relevant.
Assessing the caregiver's own history.
Yes, because it impacts their capacity to provide sensitive, stable care. These kinds of systemic insights, which highlight the deep, often unspoken impact of caregivers' own histories on the children they serve, must be integrated into policies and practices.
To create truly supportive environments.
Exactly. Policies and practices that truly support stable, predictable, and protective environments for children and families. It's about creating systems that heal and foster security, not systems that inadvertently fragment or re-traumatize.
A huge challenge, but incredibly important.
Wow.
That was an incredibly insightful journey through the future of attachment research. We've covered an immense amount of ground today, haven't we? Looking into the critical unresolved issues and the exciting directions this vital field is heading.
We really have, from methodology to mechanisms to biology to outcomes and interventions.
From refining our measures to truly capture the nuances of attachment, to exploring the complex web of causality, trying to untangle correlation from cause.
Integrating cutting-edge biological insights, understanding the brain-body connection.
In expanding the scope of both positive and challenging outcomes in diverse contexts, including adolescence and cross-culturally, it's clear the field is constantly evolving.
Constantly striving for deeper understanding and ultimately greater real-world impact.
It truly is. The overarching goal, it seems, is to continuously advance our understanding of human connection in its fullest complexity.
Identifying those areas ripe for deeper investigation, innovation, and breakthrough discoveries. This ensures that the profound insights derived from attachment theory can be translated into increasingly effective interventions and comprehensive policies.
Policies that genuinely support well-being, healthy relationships, and resilient development across the entire human lifespan.
It involves tackling complex methodological, conceptual, and practical challenges to push the boundaries of this vital field ever forward. It's an ongoing process.
And for you, our listener, considering these future directions and the persistent questions that challenge even expert researchers at the forefront of the field, how might embracing this ongoing quest for knowledge, this spirit of inquiry into what remains unknown, empower your own thinking about human connection and development in your own life? What unresolved questions about relationships or about how our past shapes our present are you most curious to explore further in your own observations or reflections?
It's really an open invitation, isn't it, for continuous learning and critical thinking, always looking for the deeper layers and connections in the magnificent, complex tapestry of the human experience.
Indeed. Join us next time for the grand finale, Part 13. Attachment Theory, Development Current Landscape, DMM Perspective, and Moving Forward.
The conclusion.
Where we will bring together all the threads of our extensive journey across these 12 deep dives and provide a comprehensive conclusion to our entire series. We'll see you then.
Looking forward to it.